Welcome to Beulah Disc Golf Course as we again look at the topic of course design. My name is Tim Anderson and I'm your disc golf dietitian. Do you have enough roughage on your course? Let's look into it. We're looking at rough and bunkers in this video. And when I say bunker, I'm including hazards, sand traps, and any other thing that might get in your way. On my course, I have one thing that is a blessing and a curse, and it's called oak brush. It grows like a weed here underneath the ponderosa forest. All of this undergrowth is a pain for us on our courses. It's hard to find discs when they go in there, and it's hard to control the stuff once we cut it down and in some of the other areas. But on the other hand, it makes for great rough or bunkers.
It's a trap!
The brush we have here grows up to a height of like 8 or 10 feet, depending on the age. What I've done along some of my fairways, and will continue to do, is cut it down with the chainsaw or up it out with the tractor, which has a grapple in the front of it. Now that's fun stuff. If you're building a course, you need a tractor with a grapple. If you were to look at a certain type of ball golf sand trap or fairway bunker, they have one that's called something like a church pew style. It has rows of earth lined up in the sand like rows of church benches. I've cut some of the oak brush to mimic this, leaving not a long wall of brush along the edge of the fairway, but rows of brush. This area would be considered the first cut, as discussed in the first video, and a mediocre drive might end up in here. You can more easily find your disc in this zone, and you can think about your risk-reward possibilities, either pitching out or maybe trying something crazy. The key is I'm trying to make this area hard to get a great shot towards the pin, but not impossible. Get your scramble rating up. Another example would be sawgrass. The course that Paul Macbeth and Dylan Cease purchased is full of it, and it is awesome for this purpose. If your disc goes in, you might be able to throw a crazy upside downer, or you might be able to stretch out, but it shows some more of your skills. It's vastly superior to someone landing in a sand trap that was co-opted from a ball golf course, and thus gifted a mysterious extra stroke.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
A sand trap in ball golf is designed to penalize an errant shot by making the next shot more difficult. It might cost you a stroke, or it might result in the crowd jumping up and screaming because you sunk an incredible shot. Here's another scenario I saw recently involving a fairway bunker co-opted from a ball golf course. One player throws a bad shot which goes over the bunker, which is right next to OB on the fairway, and sails far out of bounds. He brought it in and was throwing from behind the trap on perfect level grass with a one-stroke penalty. The next player threw a mediocre shot which hit the fairway and then skipped into that same trap. He then was also penalized a stroke, but had to throw from where it was laying. Better shot by far, but he had to throw in the sand and couldn't really get a run up. If I had $1 million to spend on a course, I would put huge sand traps in key places on the fairways, but they would also be 3 feet deep and have no penalty. Or maybe it wouldn't be as deep, but the sand would be very squishy. Now that's a hazard. These arbitrary one-stroke penalties for good or mediocre shots aren't going to get true score separation. As stated earlier, it just gets us lots of score movement, but the random penalizing effect hits all players, including the hot player in first position. One thing I really like about ball golf course design is their use of fairway bunkers and the shape of the fairways and rough. If you were teeing off from the white tees, you would be hitting over a set of fairway bunkers and not notice them. But if you went back to the gold tees, those same bunkers are now sitting between 240 and 300 yards, which is where many people would be landing. Another fairway might be shaped like an hourglass, getting really skinny at 270 and then at 300 opening up again. You either have to lay up, hit it really straight into the neck, or hit 325 over everything. But you have choices to make, which for a two-dimensional sport is very cool. We've taken our three-dimensional sport and tried to make it two-dimensional in a way. We've tried to innovate and push the limits, making some of our courses harder by co-opting some things from ball golf, but not the right things. We place a basket next to a sand trap, then use the sand trap by adding a stroke?
Son of a...
Why not make the trap or golf green a hazard where you must pull your disc directly away 40 feet from the basket out of the hazard, but not add a stroke? That adds to the toughness of the next shot, but doesn't just simply tack on a stroke. Remember, some of those shots made it into the trap because of randomness, so they already got penalized. For contrast, let's look at one of the tougher greenside bunkers in ball golf.
16, getting ready to play his third. Kevin's the 6th player, professional, to play out of this bunker left of the 16th green. Only one player has been able to get the ball up and down. Oh, boy, that one barely gets out.
That was at PGA West, and you heard the announcer say that 6 people had been down in there, and only 1 had gotten up and down. That's an extremely tough bunker, but they didn't just get a stroke added, they got to work for it and see if they could get up and down. Let's look at some examples here again. Here's hole 6. You're throwing 81 feet uphill in elevation, which is a beast of a hole. When you get off the fairway, the first cut is trees. And then when you get further up and further in, you get to the rough, which has oak brush under the trees. Good shot, mediocre shot, bad shot. We have terrible shot covered as well for those inclined. And when you get up to the green of the short pin, we have a nice chunk of brush guarding one side. And just a reminder, this course you're seeing is at a retreat center in the mountains of southern Colorado, and we're doing a crowdfunding campaign to equip the course with a full set of good baskets, concrete tees, and tee signs. If you click on the pinned comment below, you can see the status of that. The cool thing about our campaign is, for donors of $500 and up, they can come stay at the retreat here with us for a few days or more and play some disc golf. Of course, we need small donations as well, so thanks for checking it out. And before moving on, let's talk about the D-Glow Toboggan course and that tournament that's going on right now, since I actually wrote all of this over a year ago. Yeah, I'm a little bit slow. I had a stroke, so don't hassle me. I don't want to pick on any other courses or talk about changes I would make, but since Toboggan has a strange schedule for how they clear out their brush every 3 years, we'll just talk about them as a for instance. What would I do if I had hole 1 here? And how would I make some changes on something like that if I could make some permanent changes? I would not have this OB line on the right. And I would look at all this rough on the right and I would cut into it and leave strips that went in and maybe make those every 10 feet or whatever the gap would be. And I would make it so that it would just be part of the mowing schedule. And that brush is really easy to cut down. I mean, it's hard for me. I use a chainsaw or a brush hog, but you can get somebody on a forestry mulcher or something else of that type and just rip it all out in a few minutes. And then I would take the basket, and instead of having it out here in the open, I would stick it behind the trees a little bit. And I think that would change the hole a little bit. That's what I would do. You would then have that church pew style bunker going on down the right side, and so anything that went off to the right would not have a 1-stroke penalty, but they'd be throwing out over the top of the brush and then trying to get to the basket. The key is once you cut down the brush, all you have to do is include it in your mowing schedule. Then it stays down. I had mentioned in a previous video that there was a player that said he liked that they were making D-Glow harder, and that was last year. And this year, I just heard him say that this was his least favorite course. Anyways, let's keep going. All right, here's hole 16. We're looking up at the basket, and you got the yellow one up there at the top. That's the long basket. Short one's here on the right. And here's a bunch of oak brush guarding it. I'm going to trim the top of it and bring it down to almost the top of the level of the basket. Then you can putt over the top. And you can see there's a bunch of oak brush in the front. Makes it a little difficult if you land on the hill here in the front. So you've got kind of a bunker effect. You don't add strokes, you just make it tougher if you land in there. So you want to land out in front here and then have an approach up to the top. Or if you're going for the basket and you don't quite make it, then you get in trouble. And all this inside here, you used to be able to not walk in here at all. So I took out 3/4 of the brush in here. And now it's turned into a bunker of its own. But approach at the basket that goes to the right will land in here. And here we're looking back down the fairway. And it's way down in the bottom through that gap. To close out this video, we'll construct a new bunker here on hole 10. Right now it's just a jail. If you get the random roll off the basket and find yourself in the middle of this mess, your chance of hitting your comeback putt is very low. And if your approach has you in it on the back side, you would be happy to get in with 2 more shots. But with the proximity of it to the basket, it shouldn't be that punishing, so we'll turn it into a true bunker. If a good player has a 30% or 50% chance from the middle, then that might be a better starting place. Anyways, we'll do some work on it, and then we'll see how it plays over the next year. This is a view from behind the basket looking back up the fairway, and then on the left is our issue. We're going to turn this big mass of oak brush into a greenside bunker. As you can see here, it is very thick and actually tough to even get a disc out of. If someone does go in, they won't even have a putt. Let's also take a look at the tools that we're using here. I said you need a tractor, but also the thing I use the most is a electric chainsaw right there. I've got a couple gas ones around that I could use, but that electric is what you need because you're not just going full time with the thing on. You're turning it on and off, so that thing is awesome. So get one of those things if you're working on a course a lot. Here's the front side, looking at the basket and bunker from the fairway. And as we move to the right, you can see why some people might take a 3 from here. Even an upside downer can easily get knocked down and find its way inside the mass. So let's get back in front and look at where we're going to go in here and make a path inside. So let's do this. Ah, yes, listen to the roar of that chainsaw, striking fear into the hearts of trees everywhere. The plan here is to dive right into the middle and create a fine shrubbery by opening up the middle and creating a wall next to the basket and a lower wall at the far side away from the basket. The idea is to create a more difficult putt from inside the hazard, where a pro has maybe 65 to 85% chance of making it, and from outside of the hazard on the opposite side of the basket, a very low chance, where going for it might cause even a 3. With the wall closest to the basket, I'm removing brush until there's a way for a disc to fit in many of the gaps until there's always going to be a putt from any lie, taking into account straddle putts. As for the outer wall, it will instead have 5 or 6 windows to throw through. This is going to allow someone from the outside to throw through the bunker underneath the basket or within 10 feet fairly easy, but not have a good look at sinking a putt from out there. Landing on the right side of the bunker is in essence the same as landing in a pond score-wise, except you get to show your skills when finishing the hole. The key here is if you land on the right side, you have choices. You can go for it or lay up. You might hit a branch and drop in the bunker and then miss the next putt. It's risk-reward. A co-opted sand trap takes all of this away. Also, another point I might make, I feel like if a disc is inside C1 and is inbounds, you should have a putt of some sort. And that's inside this bunker. That's all inside C1 there. To the right side of this bunker is C2. And then we're looking at a different type of thing. I don't feel like it's unfair to have something this tough that's in C2 because it's a part of the course that everybody knows about and plans around. It's kind of like a pond. You plan your approach accordingly. Do I go for the green or do I lay up? You got choices, and that's golf at its core. Choices. A chess match. When we saw the clip of the extreme example of a sand trap in ball golf, it was still exciting and had the benefit of letting the players think about how to approach it, and then play out of it if they went in. we get to see golf. Handing out a stroke because of a bad shot or rollaway isn't really the same. It's boring to me when watching, and I don't often make it through the coverage of those tournaments. You never see people lined up and in their chairs on a hole like that. They're on the island holes, or the crazy bunker hole we just mentioned. Let me just mention one other kind of bunker, and that would be the cedar or juniper trees that we have here. I cut all the branches up about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. They're just nasty to crawl in, and so if your disc goes in one of those, it's not fun getting them in there. So here's somebody throwing from underneath one. So you can't throw and get a full stance underneath one, and so it still acts kind of like a bunker. And as we're looking at here, we can see some footage from Jomez that shows germ in some stuff that's really tough to get out of. Now, is this a good bunker? I don't think so, but you can be the judge of that. Should this be this close to the basket? I would be doing some trimming so people could get in there and also throw out a little bit. Back to our bunker here. We got most of it all hollowed out now. We kind of have a wall on both sides. And now I'm looking back, looking around here. We got little windows all over the place. And now time for play testing. I'm just testing to see if I can get it under the basket from most anywhere from the right side for a 2 from here. And then I'll make sure I can putt from everywhere inside. Look out, red!
Right in the schnoz!
Anyway, I will keep on trimming and adjusting until this has the right percentages for what I'm looking for. Just like any other hole in the course, we should always be adjusting and trying to improve our course. And next we'll do a quick walkthrough and we'll be all done here. All right, here's the front of the bunker. Cut out quite a bit of stuff in the middle. And then put a wall through here and drove rebar down through it, drilled some holes. Now you can see the basket. Any putt that hits the basket and then rolls down in here is not going to roll out onto the far side of the bunker. So you'll still have a putt back at the basket. If it goes to the far side of the bunker, then you're not going to get your comeback putt. Well, there we have it. We'll have to see how it plays and maybe do some more adjustments, but it's looking pretty good now. Thanks for watching, and I hope we can find some more content like this and show you what we're doing on the course. We'll keep trying to do more of this kind of stuff to make the course play well and tough and fun. So thanks, take care, God bless, and hopefully we'll see you here in Beulah in person someday.
Where'd he go?
Circle 7.